We've got the expert on it, Reid Blackman, Ethical Machines author. Might be an oxymoron to some of you in this age where so many big minds and those who are just learning about this are very leery about it, right? I mean, we've heard, the likes of Elon Musk and Steve Wozniak, of course, the co-founder of Apple, say, let's take a breather here. Now even China saying, when it comes to some of the features of this, let's kind of study what we're doing here. Are you worried?
Yeah, I am worried. I'm not worried for the kinds of reason that, say, Elon Musk is worried about. They're worried about what they call artificial general intelligence. So these are the kinds of robotic creatures that have equal to or greater than human intelligence, and then taking over the world. I'm not worried about that. I'm worried about, frankly, more mundane things that we're already familiar with, like the spread of misinformation to undermine democracy.
It's so easy, right? The photographs that look so real that aren't.
Yep.
And this came sometimes just to get it right, you'd think it's going to be years before they get it right. They got it ready after a few tries, minutes, hours, days.
It's been a little while, but It's rapidly progressing. We had ChatGPT 3 come out late last year.
Right.
We have 4 out now. 5 and 6 are on the way. No, the rate of development is massive.
Search and Microsoft, they're all involved, and they don't want to take a breather because for fear that someone else is going to take a leap on them. So where do you think this goes?
Well, we don't know where it goes. I mean, certainly things are going to be developed a lot more. There will certainly be, almost certainly be, massive ethical errors. There's things that are going to go sideways. Most people don't know how this thing actually works, and that's in part because many of the companies that develop it want to protect their IP, or at least so they say. They want to protect their IP, and so they give it to, say, enterprise, they give it to corporations, and then they're using it in their own ways, but if they don't know enough, they might not know enough about the thing that they're using in order to develop it in a safe way.
I always think that it starts reasonably enough. They make our lives a lot easier. Some ambitious teenagers and college students and high school students have found ways these things can write papers for geared to your age group, even mimicking the mistakes that, let's say, an age group would make. Yeah. That's one thing, but it's quite another when they might be able to do a lot more with that. The same thing. What do you think?
Yeah, there's all sorts of things you can do with it, right? So you can automate harassing tweets, for instance. You can automate.
Well, that explains my email. So okay.
No, that's all people.
Okay, that's real people. Yeah, we really hate you. All right.
There's you can automate the creation of disinformation. You can use it in various ways to manipulate or cajole, push people. So.
But how do you know what's real then and what's not real? Isn't that the big concern?
It's a massive concern. There's talks about things like maybe we should watermark these things so people will know that they're interacting with something that's been generated by an AI. But no such watermark has been created successfully. It's not clear why that couldn't also just be copied. So the need to know what's real from what's generated by AI is very high. The ability to actually do that systematically, especially for your average person, let alone a data scientist, is very low. So we're miles away from where we need to be.
So how do we know information we get isn't just being falsely crafted? I mean, there was one sort of thing that did this expose on an individual, and actually a series of individuals, that made it look like it was extended research dossier on someone, down to quoting stories it too had manufactured.
Yeah, right. The citations are fake.
Right, to give you the appearance. So how even are journalists supposed to separate that?
I mean, you got to do your due diligence, right? So journalists, they ought to be accustomed to doing real research and not just saying, let me Google it, let me see what the first response says and just go with that. That would be negligent, right? So it's going to be the same thing with this. It's not a terrible thing in some instances to use it as a kind of rough draft or as a prompt, but then it can require real expertise to dig in and say, all right, is this a legit citation? Is this true? Where is it pulling this information from? Can I find other corroborating sources? And if you can't, that's a really good reason not to use that information.
President Biden is looking at reining this in. He's been specific on it, what to do. Yeah. But obviously the government wants to be involved to see that this doesn't get to be a problem.
Yeah.
What do you think?
So we need a regulation. Exactly what that regulation should look like is...
We don't even know what it is. How can we regulate?
So we do know what it is. So look, there are sort of two different kinds of things going on at the moment. There's AI, that's what's called ANI, artificial narrow intelligence, which is arguably... It's the most of what artificial intelligence is now. It's also called machine learning. It's making certain kinds of predictions, like, is this a good candidate for the job or a good candidate for the university? Is this person likely to default on a mortgage? Is this person going to like this ad? Will they respond positively to this ad? That's most of what AI is around now. And so those are specific AI models trained for particular purposes. Next to that, we've got this generative AI stuff. So create me a picture of Neil jumping over the moon in the style of Picasso, right? That's a generative AI ability.
Right.
Or write me a story about Neil's massive crusade against the people landing on the moon, whatever it is, right? Some absurd story. That generative AI is also called foundational models, and you can build on top of that. So, okay, I've got this foundational model that can generate language, text, images, etc. And now I want to use it for the purposes of marketing or spreading misinformation or et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. And so there's one question about how do we regulate in a way that encourages, doesn't overly hamper innovation, but also keeps citizens safe. How do we regulate those more specific models like mortgage applications? And then there's how do we regulate and how do we distribute legal and moral responsibility among the companies that are building those foundational models, the generative AI models, and the developers who are further tweaking those foundational models. The EU, for instance, has been working for several years now on regulation around that first bit. And it's been going on for 2 years. They seem to be pretty close to getting agreement on what regulation ought to look like. There's a specific focus on what's called high-risk applications, which seems quite reasonable.
Yeah.
You know, risks to people being able to access the basic goods of life. So we're talking about healthcare, financial services, work.
But all this is happening in rocket real time.
Yes, which is why the EU is completely caught off guard when it comes to regulating around the generative AI. And so when Biden says, look, we need regulations around this stuff, there is the White House Bill of Rights, AI Bill of Rights. That's for the first category of AI that we talked about.
Right.
He seems to be talking now about regulating the generative models, which is necessary, it's needed, but it's very early days.
And it's mind-blowing. Reid Blackman, we're going to need you back to talk about this and make sense of it. I appreciate it, my friend. Reid Blackman.